one of the things that made integrated circuits a commercial success, which really no one likes to talk about, it's always something that is swept under the rug, is the manufacturing, test, and packaging. And Ed Pausa was in charge of that, first at Fairchild and later at National Semiconductor. What was the state of the art in manufacturing, test, and packaging in the mid to late 1960s, and in particular, before the era of the Fairchild Sentry macrodata testers? How were IC tested in those years, 62 to 68?
Well, my first observation about the status of manufacturing was that it was pretty much empirically developed processes, much more of an art than it was of engineering science. There were relatively many manual processes, and somewhere on the pictures you'll see a picture of a couple of assembly lines, rows and rows of closely packed operators. If you say what you had density of, you had density of people, you had density of microscopes, and you had really relative density of curve tracers, because those were the kind of tools that were being used throughout the manufacturing process. We had comparatively low yields compared to what we have now. And the quality also
Can you
was...
quantify that? What were the yields in those years, like 20 to 30%?
Well, my guess, if you multiplied them all, starting with the delivery of the wafer all the way through assembly, and remember at that point in time, you electrically tested every die on the wafer, you visually examined every die on the wafer, then you went through a couple of assembly steps, and then you visually inspected it. The cumulative yield was less than 50%. Okay. Somebody already mentioned about intermittent solder balls, and one of the consequences of having this issue of intermittent solder balls or weak leads was basically we had an operation that I would characterize as being transistors shot from guns. We basically used an air tube and put all the transistors through the air tube, propelled them against the rubber backstop to see if the leads would hold up, and then we'd electrically test them afterwards. The operation in that time was a high mix and volume of transistors relative to integrated circuits, a lot of in-house development of equipment and tooling. I remember specifically you asked about testing. In South Portland, I believe we used early model Teradyne testers, but for CDC, we had to test for speed, and we had in-house developed speed testers. There was lots of opportunity for...
You mean those were the semiconductors that Fairchild was selling to Control Data?
That's correct, yes. And Control Data for the South Portland plant was probably our single most important customer. And I remember at least at one occasion where, you know, at middle of the night when we got units out of test, somebody would drive to the airport to catch them on an early morning flight to make sure they got delivered in time. There were lots of opportunities for improvement and learning and teaching. And looking back, I would say probably the two motivating influences more than anything else were the Minuteman contract, which basically caused management and people to think about reliability and quality and documenting. And secondly, in some cases, IBM. At that point in time, there was not the 5D culture of continuous improvement. It wasn't that anyone was against it. It just wasn't in the thought process.